everyone, it's Rhonda here from Nelson's Soapery. Let's get into making this gorgeous tropical soap. So to start with, I'm going to do some prep work. So for here, I'm going to mix up my micas. So I'm starting with this one here, which is a gorgeous bubblegum pink, and it sort of leaves that real magenta color, but you do need to add at least 2 teaspoons or else your color will not be as bright as you want. So all I'm going to do is I just have my little shot glasses, and that's usually where I put all of my micas inside of them. And then I have another mica color I'm using here, and this one is called Peacock Green. So I actually get both of these from Sud Off in Australia. That's where I buy most of my micas and colors. And they're cosmetic grade and just absolutely beautiful. I don't get paid by any company to say the things that I say. I just really do it because if I like a company, I'll just say they're a great company. Next, I'm also going to be adding some titanium dioxide, but I'll pre-disperse this first because this is going to go in the base of my color just to make it a little bit whiter. It will still be a light cream, but that's okay. It will definitely be lighter. And then I'm going to pre-mix everything. So I just use these little paddle pop sticks that I've snapped in half to use them. So remember the titanium dioxide, we're going to be mixing that with water. And then we do also have the micas, and the micas are going to be mixed with some oil. So I'm just going to mix it with olive. You can just mix it with whatever you want. Just do equal parts of oil to the mica. So if there is a teaspoon of mica, you're going to use a teaspoon of oil, and so on. And that's exactly how you can just tell. Don't stress too much with that little bit of extra oil. It is not going to matter, that tiny bit of oil going back into your mixture. So all I do, like I said, is I just mix them really, really well and make sure they're all totally done. Of course, I ran out of this olive oil, so I had to crack open another olive oil just so that I could mix my colors. And the great thing about mixing them this way is it actually stops all that powdery bit or little bits of dye floating around in the soap. If you don't pre-mix them like this, often that can happen, and then you've ruined your soap and you'll be so devastated. I know, I've done it before a number of times, and that's only because I've been lazy and haven't tried to pre-disperse it. So I definitely suggest that you guys do that. And now, after I clean the bench, let's get on to the fragrance. So I have my fragrance already in here, and I'm just going to be adding in half a tablespoon of kaolin clay. And the kaolin clay is really good if you add it in and just give it a little bit of a mix, because this actually helps your scent to hold a little bit better in cold processed soap. A lot of cold processed soap is really bad for holding the scent, and 3 weeks after it's cured, you'll start to realize it doesn't even smell much anymore, and that's just because cold process just gets rid of some of these gorgeous scents, unfortunately. So this is something you can do to sort of combat that as well. So now that we have already mixed and we've done the first bit with the micas, now we're on to the main bit. So inside my bucket here, I have my olive oils, my shea butter, cocoa, and coconut oil, all the hard oils that have been melted down. They're back at room temperature, and then I've added it into here. And now let's get on with the lye. So my lye was made the day before, and the reason I'm actually straining it is just to get these little lye bits out that you'll see on the top, and sometimes you'll actually get those. And I just think, it just adds to a much nicer bar without those. So try and get those little bits out and throw that bit away. And then we're going to go back to the next stage, like I said, and then we're going to be mixing it all up and making sure we use the stick blender to get through the whole mixture. The one thing that I will say is when you start making bigger batches, you definitely need to mix more and stir more, because obviously there is a lot more volume of oils to get through, and make sure it is all consistently combined. When I first started doing bigger batches, I made a couple that didn't work, and the reason it didn't is I just noticed that I didn't mix it enough. So definitely make sure that you're mixing it really, really well when you're doing bigger lots. Some of the soaps that I make now are 6 or 10 kilos of oil. So it's a lot of oil to mix. And obviously it takes longer doing that than it would for 1 kilo. Which, I mean, I'm sure we all know that, but it's funny, you just don't think of it like that. And then you think, oh, it's taking so long, why? And anyway, but that is the reason why. And so I'm just going to mix it super well here. Of course, once I'm happy with all this, you know, you add in your titanium, and then of course we would be adding in fragrance oils and so on. But I just make sure that I just, like I said, mix this really, really well so that I'm happy with it and I know it's exactly the way I want it to be. Do make sure you have your gloves on, super important. Make sure you have your glasses and all of those safety things. Please go back to my videos and other videos to check out safety if you have not made soap. And soap making is not for children. I have to say that it's definitely not for children. It is a bit dangerous for children. I definitely would not advise children in the room or pets while you're making soap. So now we're on to the next bit. We're just going to separate this batch because I want to do one of these jugs to have some of that gorgeous pink and one of them to have the peacock green. So I'm just going to take a little bit out in each. I just randomly tip this out. You know, I know roughly how much it is, but I don't, you know, measure that exactly because it doesn't matter really. And now, like you can see, I've just added the titanium, so I'll give it another whiz and make sure that it's going to be all gorgeous. Do remember too, when you're making soap, the color that you can see in it now is not the color it's going to stay. It's really important to remember that because soap looks dirty and brown, but once it starts to cure, it gets that really gorgeous light color. But, you know, if you add like extra virgin olive oil, that will make it sort of darker and greener because it's a much darker oil. So you can use light olive oil if you want, or there's some other oils that you can use, but I only use olive. I don't use any other oils but olive, except for, you know, like sweet almond oil or apricot oil, but I don't add sort of like a cheaper one or rice bran or anything like that. And that's just how I've marketed myself. No reason for it, it's just what I've done. So now I have my big slab mold here. As lots of you probably know from my other videos, Vinnie, who is amazing at making these products, has made this for me. You'll be able to find him on Etsy. I'll pop down a link for Vinnie's Etsy store as well, and pop over there if you want any of these. You can also buy extra silicone inserts as well, which is really good. And if he doesn't have it listed on his site, just contact him through Etsy and, you know, he'll let you know what he's got available. So anyway, I'm just going to pour my base color in here, as you can see, and then once I've done that, then this is when I'm going to come back and add in all of my colors. This one is a totally palm free oil as well, sorry, not oil, soap, and it's also a vegan appropriate soap as well because it has no animal or animal byproducts in it as well. So I used to actually do sustainable palm in my other soap recipes, some of my earlier ones, but I just found, you know, doing wholesale, a lot of people just don't seem to want it. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to cut that out, make it simple for myself, and do palm free vegan so that everyone can grab it, no matter you know, whether they're vegan or not. So now let's just add some gorgeous colors in here. So like I said, the peacock green, we're going to add that in, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful color. If you like a little bit more of a bolder color, the same as this bubblegum pink is a little bit more bold, but you do need to make sure, like I said earlier, that you add at least a tablespoon or a couple teaspoons, because without that it's just not going to be as bold. And I know because I did that myself and did one that wasn't as bold, and I was like, oh no, but anyway, it's just the way it is, isn't it? So, but this one is going to be absolutely gorgeous soon. So I thought, let's get and mix some of these. And why I'm at it, I'll have to tell you, I'm definitely going to have to go back to Vinnie and get another one of these molds, because I'm just making so much soap now, especially wholesale. And one of my customers who is in Melbourne, sorry, not Melbourne, he's in Australia, in Sydney, and he bought so many soap, just emptied out my shelf again. So now I've got to start again and of course put more on. I do have some soap available, but because of demand, I'm definitely going to have to buy several of these slab molds so that I can get more made at the same time, I think. But anyway, like I said, let's just pop it in. So all I do is straight lines. I'm literally just dropping it straight in. And I do have marks along the side of this slab mold so that I know exactly where the center is of each mold. Because remember, when you're doing a slab mold, we're going to be cutting this into 5 different logs. So this particular one will give me 5 logs with the size that I use on mine. And then, you know, of course, I'm going to cut them. And I do have my husband's molds that I also still use. But sometimes Vinnie's ones are easier because they've got the silicone in them. And it's just easier for me to, you know, to use, especially because I'm making so many and I don't want to have to be trimming off the edges when you sort of use paper and line them that way. Because no matter how careful you are with the paper, it does leave little creases or lines on the edge, which is very annoying. And the one thing that you will probably notice here, I made a big boo-boo and I definitely did not add enough mixture to this. So I was like, oh no, I wanted to cry because I just definitely didn't do enough mixture. So I had to go back and do an extra little bit, and I'll pop that in a bit later, just a plain one to add it all in. But at the end of this, I will actually show you the cut once we get to that stage. But for now, we're obviously just going to be adding all the colors in and making sure that we empty absolutely everything out of my little soap containers, because the least that you have left in the container makes it much easier to clean and wash it all out. And what I do is just leave it aside for a day, and then I'll wash it out the next day with some nice hot soapy water, and then the jugs are nice and clean. So for here, like I said, you can see here that I finished this, but there definitely wasn't enough, and I thought, oh well, we'll just give it a bit of a swirl and then I will come back later. You will notice with most of my soap with palm, I don't actually bring it to a heavy trace. It's a very light trace, and definitely I've noticed when making a palm-free soap in comparison to a palm soap, the mixture sets up really differently. So you do really have to get used to how everything's setting up, mixing, and it's been a real change from going from the sustainable palm recipe to this recipe is really different. As I said, it really honestly is. So as I was saying before, we definitely needed to go ahead and add some more mixture. So I did have to mix another kilo of the mixture, and then I just popped it in. So that's why you'll see the top has more of the white and not so much color, but that's okay, because once we turn it over, which I'm doing now, this is just giving a bit of texture onto the soap, and it is still quite soft. I probably should have waited too. It was a little bit thicker, but you know, you live and you learn. And anyway, and the colors underneath. So pretty much what you've seen before when we were getting the chopstick or the little acrylic stick that I used to turn all the colors over, that will give it more of a swirl. But if you want it to look like a bit of a drop swirl or almost like a paint drop through it, it just means that you wouldn't be stirring that with the chopstick. You would have just left it and let it exactly how it falls, and it will give a stronger color. When you twirl it with the chopstick, that actually does allow it to look a little bit more sort of water-like, almost like a watercolor with a bit of a spray, because you're turning the color and mixing it a tiny bit back into the white. But here, let's texture it. All we're going to be using here is just a spoon, and lucky for me, this is an unused spoon, of course, from KFC. So, you know, don't throw out any of those things when you get them from all your little stores, because they actually work out to be really good spoons. So anyway, I use it for this one here, and all I do is try and pull the mixture into the center so it creates like a little bit of a dome at the top. But if it doesn't end up being a dome that I like, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's just a bit of texture, and it just adds a little bit of character to the soap rather than having it super plain. I'm also going to be adding on my biodegradable glitter to this one. I actually do add one that is, I think it's called like Sparkle Christmas or something like like that. I've had this one, which I bought in bulk for quite a long time ago from Heirloom in Australia, and it's a really, really beautiful biodegradable glitter. So anyway, this particular soap gets this one, and this is one of my wholesale soaps as well. And if you go onto my website, which is nelsonsoapery.com, you'll actually see that I have a whole list of palm-free ones that are wholesale, and now also individually as well they are listed, so you'll be able to see them. So here you go. Here is the cut out of my slab. I do get 5 loaves out of them, and then I cut them as well. So, but you know, if you had a wider loaf or a wider bar, then you would not get so many loaves out, but mine is tall and thin, so that's the way I like it. My little bars are a little bit different shape. So here we go. I just started cutting them, and I thought I'll just pop this in the video because some of you might like to see me cut it. Now, the one thing that I have to tell you is when you actually use a slab mold, this sounds silly, but you have to make sure you cut the loaves the right way, because I've cut them kind of the opposite way, so it means that they're more colourful. But if you want to do the drop swirly bit and don't swirl it in with the chopstick, you need to make sure it's the right way, otherwise the colours are on the side and not on the front panel of the soap, if that makes sense. I'm sure you can figure that out, and hopefully that makes sense anyway, but it still looks really beautiful, and I really didn't care the way it was cut because I think people just want the colour. And this is the thing too, when you're making different batches, and this is why you would make batch numbers, because every loaf and bar and so on is going to be totally different. So next time I might forget and add less mica or something, which I have done that before, and then the colours won't be as bold and they'll be a little bit more transparent. So that's important to let customers know that they won't be the same because they're uniquely made. So at the end, let's go. Here we go. Everything is cut and we are getting ready to fix them all up. Now, of course, I need my little potato peeler just to bevel the edges to make them look really nice and easy to hold. So look at these beautiful colors. They're just so pretty. And like I said, this is my tropical fiesta typed one. So thank you for listening, everyone. Make sure you give me a thumbs up, of course, and I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.